same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly, last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
Seen Facebook do that before. I just posted this Democratic Party headquarters news. Andy Aronsky was apparently taken from his home and disappeared by the police because someone claimed they felt threatened by him and had a doctor sign off on a mental evaluation. No, I haven't posted anything today. I mean, not since early this morning. So there's no reason why they would, and what they did was they made me fill out one of those things where anti-spam type things where you fill in the picture with a bunch of letters and numbers. I've never seen them do that, and they did it. I mean, I've seen them do that. They've done that to me. After I posted a whole bunch of to a whole bunch of groups in a row, which I don't know why it would be illegal for under Facebook rules to post a post, like some post in particular, one post in particular, to a whole bunch of different groups. I mean, you're not spamming anybody, you're not spamming the group. You're not posting the same post over and over and over to a group or anything like that. You're just posting the same post to many different groups, which, why would that be a problem? Anyway, and this one I haven't even posted yet. That was the first time I posted it. So now it should show up as my post on my timeline, and there it is. Let's see if they make me go through this. So copy link address. First of all, this guy said he wanted me to post it on his timeline, so here we go. Alright, so seemed to post okay. I don't know why it would be a problem anyway. Let's try a few more times. Let's see, I want to post it to my groups, and they're my groups, so that's for sure one of those things, you wouldn't make illegal. I mean, they're my members of my group, so should be okay. Maybe it was some weird fluke, but it seemed to me like it recognized that name. That the post is today's Democratic Party headquarters news. And I'll go to groups, and one thing they did the other day which really fucked me up was I had a whole bunch of favorite groups that I like to post to that aren't my groups, but I put them in here in my favorites. I came back the other day and my favorites had all been changed. Now these are just a bunch of groups that belong to me, and none of them were in my favorites, and my favorites had basically these groups right here, in your groups, the ones at the top, like this one and this one and this one and this one, they just changed them all. Somebody did. I didn't do it in my sleep or something. So I'll start posting. Post one to Democratic Party headquarters news, bad cops. House of Jesus is too small. The real Democratic Party has 800 members. New movement change. Now. Why religion sucks. Why capitalism sucks. I have some Bernie groups here. Kentucky for Bernie Sanders 2020. The Michael Moore for President group. Communists for Bernie Sanders. Current progressive events. Why TYT sucks. We the people. And Americans for Single Payer has 96 members without me even trying. I mean, they just all joined up. This is the first time I've ever seen that happen. Okay, so, and Bernie Sanders 2020. People for Peace in the Middle East. That's all of my groups that I want to post to, so let's start posting to them. See, there we go. So it's going to make me type in this word, which you can't even read. I can't tell if that's a C or a Q. It looks like Q4XA2P. Now, I'm going to have to type each one of these in, so I'm going to have to set you down, but I'm going to type all of them in. I don't give a fucking shit, man. They can't fucking do this to me. It's like they're giving me ones that are especially hard to type in. I mean, this is all on one hand. Q2, QBQJQ. What kind of fucked up code is that? And how can it be spam when I've entered it in like 5 times in a row already? I mean, if it were spam, you'd nail the person on the first time, right? Because they wouldn't be able to. If it was a bot, a bot can't type these in. So after that, why bother? See, this guy Andy Ostowski, or whatever his name is, has a lawsuit that includes Facebook, because Facebook is, Facebook is claiming that, no doubt, all of the corporations, all of the oligarchy, they all claim private. It's private. It's privately owned. We can do whatever we want. But in fact, when you get millions of Americans all using something that's private for communication, for socialization, for and now for political reasons, I mean, Facebook has become a utility. It's become something that, okay, they can be allowed to operate as a private institution or a company and make profits and do all that kind of stuff. But if they want to be the platform for people politicking and working together to be powerful in American life, in politics, if they want to be that, and that's what's making them all that money and stuff, then they're going to have to be a utility. They're going to have to be responsible to the people who make them as big as they are, make them as important as they are. Otherwise, we're all going to have to find some other place. And, fuck Facebook if that's how it's going to be. If they're going to go out of their way to make Facebook a pain in the ass for us, well, we can make Facebook to where it doesn't even matter anymore. We can all agree to take our business elsewhere and do it all at the same time. That would really, we could boycott Facebook. Matter of fact, I see a lot of people trying to do that, but they don't have the platform elsewhere to pull it off yet. But if Facebook keeps on doing this, I'll bet you people get together and start a boycott. Okay, so I typed in their stupid fucking code for about 10 or 15 groups of my own that I wanted to post to. Now let's see what happens when I try and post it as a comment on somebody's post to my news feed. So go here. So Sue Rugi's paste and post. Corey McKenna, paste and post. Alright, it's not doing anything to me here. So what it's doing, as far as I can tell, is it's recognizing this guy's name. He has a lawsuit that includes Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. And so one of Zuckerberg's people has flagged this guy's name, so that, I think that's obvious. If anybody thinks that's not what's going on, other than jackass trolls who just don't like what I'm posting, I'd be interested in hearing your opinion. I took his name out of the post. Kenneth Anowski, whatever. And it goes right through. The only excuse I think they would even dare to make, see, no problem. And I'm posting to other people's groups, not my groups now. So, even more reason why they would flag it. But they're flagging his name. And they might be able to say, well, they might have the nerve to say, well, because this guy's filed a lawsuit with our name and our CEO's name, we can't discuss it. Like lawyers always say, well, because it's an ongoing litigation, I can't discuss the matter. Can't discuss it. Well, even when we use that, that's an excuse. You can talk about anything you want. Very rarely does a trial get moved to a different location because people talked on TV about it. And it only happens if somebody requests it. So you can see I'll post it here to to the group Our Revolution. And see, I didn't have to do anything that time. Didn't have to type in the anti-spam thing. Okay, so continuing on with the story of Andy Ostrowski, because this absolutely fascinates me. So I'm digging up stuff from the past. This is a blog from Julia M. Frankston Morris Esquire, which I guess means that some ass gave her permission to practice law. And reading it, it looks like she has acquired, or maybe through the judicial process they have made everything, every detail of Andy's life, down to his personal relationships and whatever he calls this girl Karen Esposito a junkie. You know, like doing drugs is, you know my position by now. I'm for legalization of all. I don't believe in any kind of criminal prosecution, punishment for people exercising their right to be alive. You know, if you want to try a substance, within reason, right? But obviously you're not allowed to try hemlock, you know. And then that brings up the question of suicide, right? Are people allowed to commit suicide? Should they be allowed to commit suicide? I don't know, man. It's their life. I do believe that once you get past that feeling of wanting to commit suicide, that you realize how stupid it was in the first place, unless you're being tortured 18 hours a day in a prison or something like that. Your life is your life. We end up all having to deal with bad people and what bad people do to us, and that's what our fight is all about, right? Stopping those people from doing bad things. Well, they've done a lot of bad things to Andy, and from what I can see here, her biggest problem is that he called some woman a cunt, right? What does she say here? She says, I have been told directly by people desperate to reach out to me, to reach me, that Ostrowski, and who hasn't called some girl a cunt or something like that, and these people, they're all above that, right? But they're not above ruining a man's life. And they took his law license away from him 6 years ago, and from what I've read so far, they didn't really have anything. This is the kind of stuff, this is the only stuff I've seen so far, and it comes from, like she says, people telling her. And if this guy was such a problem, wouldn't people wear a voice recorder when they were around him? And so what? This is the same kind of shit that I see out of Hillary supporters. He stalked a female when she no longer would support his candidacy. Stalked? Do you have proof that he followed her around and all that? He has called this female the C word, obviously a cunt. That's all it takes with these women. If somebody called me an asshole, I just go the other direction, do something else, or get a voice recorder, and I would want to get more than that, Uh, and so maybe she was being a cunt, you know? Who knows? Constantly threaten. Now here's where it gets into it. Constantly threatens lawsuits and sometimes follows through. So there you go. I mean, this is what's pissing these people off, is that he would actually call people out on their injustice, on their illegality, on what they're doing and what they're saying or whatever. Asks people for money. I am one example. What does that even mean? I mean, asking somebody for money isn't illegal, especially if you're doing it like maybe he feels like they owe him money for some kind of legal. I mean, this is obviously all between legal people. She's some jackass lawyer. And let's face it, most lawyers are jackasses. And in her opinion was a veiled extortion attempt. In other words, I mean, so now whenever you try and do a settlement out of court, it's a veiled extortion attempt. See, this woman is crazy, and she's crazy in a way that the whole legal system is crazy. They have all these little ways worked out to where they can harass and intimidate people, and this is them. So they can call anything you do illegal, and they can put it in these little reports that they have. And you know, I mean, poor Andy, his whole just because he got burned when he was a child, and he believed he had PTSD, and I'm sure he's lying about how he was doing smoking pot as medicinal, but he was a lawyer, and they'll take your license away if you admit that you're smoking pot for fun, for recreational purposes, right? And I think he got caught twice. May have gotten caught smoking meth or something once. I mean, this is easy to do in this world of, I mean, I'm sure that this isn't the first time the cops have come into his house and dragged him away. And so everything in this suggests to me that this is about drugs, you know, and they don't like him doing drugs and being a lawyer, and his friends who are also doing drugs. I mean, it all comes down to that all the time, it seems like. And then down here is a personal professional disclosure from Andy Ostrowski, and he just talks about what he believes, and he did get medical evidence that he suffered from PTSD, but we all suffer from PTSD. We all suffer from anxiety. You know, that's what they used to call it when I was a kid. Anxiety and stress. Now it's PTSD. Now it has to be associated with an incident or whatever you want to call it. So, does it really? I mean, does it really? Doesn't the fact that we wake up nervous? I mean, everybody does, even if they're not willing to admit it. And I have all kinds of things that I do. I know one of the best forms of meditation there is in the whole world, for sure. And mainly because I understand what meditation really is. Let me tell you what meditation is. Why should I keep this a secret? Okay, so I learned a form of meditation from a Catholic priest who had gone to India and learned under the top, gurus or whatever you want to call them. And it really worked. I mean, it was really good. But one day I figured out why it really worked. So that feeling you get, that transcendental feeling, and that's why it's called transcendental meditation, comes from you forcing oxygen into your body through your lungs. And how you do it is simple. Almost every meditation makes you do this. You have to breathe in a real deep breath, and then say your mantra. And as you're saying your mantra, almost underneath your breath, you're slowly letting out your breath. So what you're doing is holding your breath. Well, let me tell you what happens when you hold your breath. You're creating high pressure within your lungs, and it's forcing oxygen into your bloodstream, okay, or through into your lungs, which obviously, so you're creating, and at some point, if it's a really long mantra, you also run out of that oxygen as you're letting your breath out. And the whole thing creates a situation where at the beginning you're forcing a lot of oxygen into your lungs, and you're forcing your lungs to move oxygen more than they would on through. And that's what it is. That's what that feeling is. Obviously, if you think anything in particular, I mean, you could think ham, and picture, you know, when you say it, you picture ham, and I have a picture of a ham in my. Okay, well, obviously that's going to take your mind off of everything else, right? I mean, you could have just gotten into the biggest fight of your life with your wife or something, and you could sit there and think ham, 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 and slowly but surely your anger and your everything would go away because you're not angry at ham, right? Well, the same thing with a mantra, whatever the mantra is. Like the mantra that I learned is UNG, and okay, this is the whole thing that they taught me, because it's not that hard, so I can teach you real quick. So they teach you to sit straight, which I don't buy. It's not that important. And to keep your, you know, you're supposed to do the lotus position or whatever, and then you're supposed to keep your back straight, which I can't do because my back's crooked as a question mark after rugby and stuff. And supposedly you're going to channel this energy. I mean, this is the whole chi kind of thing from China, but this is Indian. And it's all bullshit, except for that you might be able to affect the spinal circuitry or something. That's possible, but there is no magic energy running up and down your back to your brain. But there may be a physical aspect to it that actually exists. So anyway, you go in your brain. So that's in your brain, and then you do and which are almost the same but sound a little different. And then you're concentrating on your throat area, and supposedly you're concentrating on your spinal up and down in the back, the same areas. Gring, so great Gring in your chest, and kring down in your stomach. And you're also supposedly making this chi stuff go up and down your spinal cord while you're doing this. And then you say the little prayer that they have to go with it, which is to Vijaya, which is one of the Indian gods of, I don't know, life or fertility or something. You'd have to look it up. And you say Chamada e Vijaya. I don't really even know what Chamada e Vijaya means. I mean, I know what they told me it meant, but the English translation. But I don't think it matters. I mean, I think it's just like I say, a distraction more than anything. I mean, there's obviously not anybody listening to you named Vijaya. Right. So anyway, so there you go. There is the ultimate meditation. And I have no doubt. I mean, I've done it. I do it all the time when anytime I'm stressed out and I can't get to my Xbox or my gaming on the computer, because you talk about taking your mind off your problems. I mean, once you start jamming on a game, there's nothing else, right? 30 minutes later, you're like, oh yeah, I was stressed out about something. I mean, if somebody pisses me off, that's what I'll do, is I'll play a game. If I can't get to the game, or if I'm lying in bed trying to sleep or something, then I'll do meditation. It works almost as well. And in some way, and they're different, so they work differently. Anyway, so I will put this entire thing in here right after where I'm saying this right now, as a text-to-speech. I've got text-to-speech, and you deserve to know the information that's in here.
WB Truth Exposing Corruption, Tuesday, February 23, 2016. Where to report Andy Ostrowski. Who to contact: Julia M. Frankston Morris, Aspire Disciplinary Council, Pennsylvania Judicial Center, 601 Commonwealth Avenue, Suite 5800, P.O. Box 62675, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 17106-675T 717.772.8572 at 717.772.7463. Julia Frankston Morris at PACourts.us. Recently I have been inundated with horror stories across the state related to the disbarred. For 6 years Andy Ostrowski, whose mental state somehow convinces him that is a good idea, as a disbarred attorney, one who has had 3 substance abuse stays, one who is admitted to self-medicating with pot, one who has continued to have a junkie Karen Esposito, FB alias Kim Wee Eagle, spends significant time with him in Sugarloaf, often for overnight's crack cocaine conviction, not allowed to drive her children, passes out, lost custody of her children. This is the very short list. One who floats the idea of PTSD to the disciplinary board, which did not accept this malady in its writings. To run for 1 PA governor, to run 2 against Lou Arletta, and now 3 has designs on the U.S. Senate. His platform is singular. The court suck. I have been told directly by people desperate to reach me that Ostrowski has dealt with them dishonestly, has stalled a female when she no longer would support his candidacy, has called this female the C word, constantly threatens lawsuits, and sometimes follows through, asks people for money. I am one example in wording. In my opinion, that is a veiled extortion attempt. Writes long rambling letters to people using terms like douchebag and other juvenile terms. Wrote one letter to a person's psychiatrist who reported him to the bar. Has practiced law illegally, has actively aided the junkie mom in getting her children back, which is a very dangerous idea, has stolen from a neighbor Percocet, beer, art supplies, paintings, and bath towels. It has been suggested that he and the junkie mom could be getting the little money they have through selling banned substances. If any of this sounds familiar, please contact Julia M. Frankston Morris, Aspire Disciplinary Council, Pennsylvania Judicial Center, 601 Commonwealth Avenue, Suite 5800, P.O. Box 62675, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania 17106-675T 717.772.8572 at 717.772.7463. Julia Frankston Morris at PACourts.us. Ostrowski's personal disclosure. Andy Ostrowski personal and professional disclosure. I come to this campaign with some topics for which it is very reasonable and appropriate for the voters to want all the information available to explain that background. I understood that at the time I made the decision to seek this office. That is why I am posting this. I currently have a suspended law license, suspended for a year and a day, effective February 9, 2010. I am eligible for reinstatement, and will be filing for reinstatement in the near future. I have also had some personal struggles, which became publicly known due to the Supreme Court Disciplinary Board releasing my medical history to the public. The 2 issues relate to each other, and are part of a story that must be understood when answering the question, why were you suspended? The short answer is I was suspended because I am a civil rights lawyer who became a target of a corrupt attorney disciplinary system because of the nature of the cases I handled, and the people I represented and worked with. I suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder most of my life, resulting from some severe burns I suffered as a child. I had some issues related to that condition that caused me problems off and on throughout my life. I never received a proper diagnosis or treatment for it, and self-medicated with marijuana, which is now recognized as one of the most effective PTSD treatments. In 2013, I did, after nearly 40 years of suffering with the condition, receive a diagnosis, and have received proper treatment for it. I do not use marijuana or any prescribed medications of any kind now. My practice was largely devoted to civil rights cases. I have represented minorities, women, whistleblowers, and victims of police and government abuse, and have sued many highly placed public officials and wealthy public and private institutions over the years, including Penn State University and Hershey Foods. I was zealous and competent in my representation, always. Civil rights lawyers all over the country, and lawyers who speak out against questionable conduct of judges and courts, are singled out disproportionately for sanctions and for discipline. I experienced some personal problems related to my medical condition that interfered with my practice 7 to 11 years ago, and was unable to follow through on a case for a client for medical reasons. I saw that the client received assistance from other counsel, and paid another attorney to pick up and help. He had trial counsel, but lost the trial, and made a complaint to the disciplinary board. The disciplinary board decided to use that case to take my license from me. I did nothing for which I should have been disciplined. Other attorneys who had done far more than me, have received slaps on the wrist, so to speak, and have been protected by the system. One of the documents I am making available is a chart of comparative disciplines against other non-civil rights lawyers, because of medical mistreatment I experienced in and around the same period of time. I had no medical evidence to put on at the time of my hearing on the charges. I admitted most of the facts, and stipulated to a moderate punishment because I wanted to put the matter behind me and get on with my active practice. That stipulation was rejected, as was a similar recommendation by a hearing panel, and the full disciplinary board summarily imposed a suspension for 1 year and 1 day, with no further right for hearing or argument by me. That recommendation was accepted by the Supreme Court. The year and a day period is significant because it requires a reapplication and hearing process to get reinstated for any discipline over 1 year. After the hearing on my discipline, the client came to me and apologized for filing the complaint against me. He also asked me to represent him again. The disciplinary board published an opinion, and filled it with facts that, while largely true, were cast in an unfavorable light toward me, deliberately. Again, I had no mitigating medical evidence, which I now have. That was a highly significant factor in my discipline, i.e., if I had appropriate medical evidence, I likely would not have been disciplined, or the punishment would have been substantially mitigated, and I would have my license now. There is an implication in the disciplinary board opinion that I misused client funds. This is false. The client paid me, and all agreed that I more than earned the amount he paid me. I even paid money out of my own pocket to other counsel to ensure he had adequate representation when I experienced the medical issues. I handled the fees as is customary in the litigation practice. This issue was put in the disciplinary board opinion to create an impression of some sort of dishonesty on my part. This is false. I never engaged in an act of dishonesty or deceit throughout my career. I have attempted to go back and have my old disciplinary proceedings opened, and have my prior punishment reduced under principles recognized in the law for opening prior judgments. My efforts have been denied by both the state and federal courts. My reinstatement has been resisted because of my activities through the Pennsylvania Civil Rights Law Network, and my writings on PennsylvaniaCivilRightsLawNetwork.com, and some videos that are posted at youtube.com/PCRLN1776. In these matters, I am highly critical of the courts, and the quality of access to justice in our country. Please review these materials at great length, as they contain very important information. I have been told by my former attorney that he could get me my license back if I take down my site, and the federal disciplinary prosecutor specifically cited my writings and videos as a basis for not returning me to practice, on the asserted grounds that they demonstrate that I am not fit to return to the practice of law. That is false. I will not take down my site, and the public should be outraged that an attorney's right to practice should be conditioned on compromising his First Amendment rights. This, however, is the state of our judiciary. Federal Middle District Judge Matthew Brand wrote an opinion for public consumption a week after I announced my candidacy for Congress that was terribly dishonest. He found me unfit to return to practice, citing my PCRLN materials. He has only been a federal judge for just over a year. Everything I have said in those materials is demonstrably true, and I invite further inquiry into all of these matters. I am making all the supporting documents available. As a result of all of the foregoing, I have also suffered catastrophic personal financial losses. Dozens of meritorious cases of mine, or that I was working on with others over the years, that should have gone to trial, have been thrown out on unsupportable grounds by the courts, and the medical mistreatment I was subjected to also contributed to my situation. There are tax liens and judgments against me. I have, however, never put my personal financial condition above my commitment to justice. These matters will all be resolved in time. There is an abundant amount of information in the public domain that is available concerning all of these matters, and I am making it available here. I am running for Congress despite all of the foregoing, knowing full well that my opponent will seek to use select pieces of these things for political advantage. I suspect the press, favorably inclined to my opponent, or disinclined to me, will do the same. The Republican Herald of Bloomsburg had already done so in 2010, and released all my disciplinary matters widely in that area because I was counseled in state and federal actions at that time exposing the grave and extensive misconduct behind the internationally known Centralia mine fires. There was never any fire that was ever going to threaten the existence of the borough of Centralia. The Republican Herald appears to have some interest in casting me in a pretty bad light. I will talk about those matters during my campaign. I also will be engaging in other procedures seeking the reinstatement of my law license. I will be doing that during this campaign. I have always conducted myself as a professional, with integrity and honesty, and should, rightfully, be returned to the practice of law. My experiences as a civil rights lawyer have given me a unique insight into some of the problems that are affecting our political culture and society, but are not often talked about. While my personal experience is part of it, this is not a personal mission. I have seen too many people abused by the system, and had their faith and confidence in their courts and governments shattered, and had those rights with which they have been endowed by their Creator cut off and denied, and recourse to their courts for remedies, and their vindication cut off and denied. It is a problem with much wider implications. In 1821, Thomas Jefferson said the following: "The germ of destruction of our nation is in the power of the judiciary, an irresponsible body, working like gravity by night and by day, gaining a little today and a little tomorrow, and advancing its noiseless step like a thief over the field of jurisdiction, until all shall render powerless the checks of one branch over the other and will become as venal and oppressive as the government from which we separated." And in Federalist 17, Alexander Hamilton said, "The ordinary administration of criminal and civil justice is the most powerful, most universal, and most attractive source of popular obedience and attachment. It is that which, being the immediate and visible guardian of life and property, having its benefits and its terrors in constant activity before the public eye, regulating all those personal interests and familiar concerns to which the sensibility of individuals is more immediately awake, contributes, more than any other circumstance, to impressing upon the minds of the people affection, esteem, and reverence towards the government." I believe my experience has given me a unique insight into these matters, and their truthfulness and aptness to our current political and cultural climate. These are matters of high public importance that must be addressed, and I felt I had an obligation to discuss them on the PCRLN site. The mass media, however, for institutional reasons, does not cover these matters, and the judiciary has largely excised itself from the checks and balances of the other branches. They are very important political issues, and I feel I have a duty to discuss them as a candidate for the United States Congress. I have a personal history that does not disqualify me from anything. My own suffering has taught me empathy and compassion for all suffering anywhere, and a commitment to eradicate it. My disciplinary history, and that of a friend and colleague of mine by the name of Don Bailey, has given me a unique insight into the workings of the system, and how the admonitions of Thomas Jefferson are being carried out. It is time for some real change in this system by getting back to some very basic fundamental issues like due process and fairness. That is why I decided to run for Congress. The personal and disciplinary stuff is just part of the story that brought me here. The voters can decide on its true importance.
On behalf of, what's his name? Ken Oskowski. with the ACLU of Pennsylvania, okay, so of course conservatives go back to what has made them successful over and over and over again. I mean, what do you expect them to do? It's either that or lose. So they have a choice between losing and losing. I mean, that's their sad reality. They have no hope of overcoming this tidal wave of anger over them simply being in politics to make themselves rich. And I look at the people who own houses, okay, and they all look the same. Half of them are blonde, or they make themselves blonde. And I mean, it's just like everything conservative and capitalist is directed towards them. So, if you accidentally overdraw your checking account, they want $35, right? Now, if you're rich, or if you're well-to-do, at least, or if you've at least got a decent job with a couple thousand, 3, 5, 6,000, I don't know how much people get paid, because that's a big secret, right? When it gets up over, $10 an hour, it's like a secret. No, probably $20 an hour, because they feel guilty, so they try and keep it a secret. But the point is that there's all these. If you want anything, if you want any help, like if I want an electrician who well, let me just get right into it, okay? You buy a house, right? You're going to live in it for 35 years, 45 years. Say the life of the house is 100 years. Then why shouldn't the person who sells it to you provide support for it for 100 years? The company. Why not? I mean, forget all the capitalist reasons. Oh, well, we would have to charge you so much you could never buy the house, and all those are just, they're just wiggling. They're just ways to tell. I mean, you buy a computer and you put Windows on it. That copy of Windows and your computer ought to be good for at least 10 or 15 years. But I look now, if you want to buy a copy of Windows 10, when the service agreement runs out on it? 2022, I believe. So you're getting, I mean, they just keep on shortening and shortening. It's 2017, that's just 5 years. I should be able, I mean, I understand that things change, but a house doesn't change. You don't like constantly have to upgrade it. So if you can't figure out something about your house, like why the electricity isn't working in the garage or something like that, and an electrician has to come over and help you figure it out. You got to press a button here or something like that. I really just don't see what the big deal is. Why the thing that really bothers me is if you're somebody else, if you're not part of a big corporation or something, you have to, and let's say you work for big corporations. Okay, so like I'm working as a paint guy, touching up cars and stuff over at the Honda dealership. Well, if we were to try and charge them every time they asked us to come look at something or come and help them with something, we'd be out of there slicker than shit. I mean, in no time at all. But everybody else, all these big corporations that sell $100, $200, $300,000 houses, they guarantee your house for 2 years. And they know within that time there's not much that's going to go wrong, right? But as soon as something does go wrong, you're of course calling them and saying, look, I paid $225,000 for this house. Can't you just at least help me out? So they have to pull a guy off of what he's doing. It takes him 10 minutes to come over here, find a wall plug for you and show you where to press a button, and then they want $65, you know, and you don't have any say in it. It's just crazy, man. It's just really crazy. I mean, here's the point, though. At least for me, it's the point, because I'm not a lazy guy, and I don't think that most people are really intrinsically lazy. I doubt that, and I don't think that even after all the ridiculousness that people suffer through their lives, that they become bitter and lazy. But some do, and sometimes it's just a temporary thing, right? But we're all part of a community, right? And what does that mean in reality for us, and what does it, and what should it mean? So, like, say everybody in the United States, or 70%, let's say 30%, 40% said, look, I'm not happy with the way the community works. These people, there are a certain kind of people, all these white people with these, or not just white people, but they all look the same, they all act the same, they all get the same amount of money, they all make $80, $90, $100,000 a year, whereas if I were to work, I'd be lucky to make 50. And most of my life I've spent, and this is me, most of my life I've spent making between 20 and 40. I mean, that's just, and that's working your ass off. That's working 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, okay? And that's being the son of the owner of the company, who made millions, by the way, while we were doing this, or at least $1 million or $2 million. Now, so you know, or let's say you work at Walmart, make $8 an hour, $10 an hour. Maybe if you're lucky, at the end of your 5 years working in Walmart, you're making $15 an hour. Okay, and you want to say, look, you know, I'm just going to spend all my life, from the time I was about 18 or 25 or something, doing this as part of this community, and in the end, I'm not going to have a house, I'm not going to have a place to retire, I'm going to have to depend on, and even while you're working, you're having to depend on food stamps and stuff, and you say, look, enough. You want me to be part of this community? I mean, when people make a community or a deal, even when people just have a partnership, they're not going to enter into it without certain expectations, right, that are on paper and have to be fulfilled. And why shouldn't the 50 million people out there who are working every day and never going to get anything out of life, and on top of that, they're having their life taken away because they're having to dedicate it to somebody else? Because, I mean, in the end, isn't it clear that we're all working so that some ass can have a nice house and 3 kids and a beautiful wife? I mean, isn't that pretty clear in the end? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I see. I see people like me working their ass off all their life as part of a community, and I never really asked, well, what about me? That's just me. I get up every morning and I want to participate in creating a world, and as part of a community, I want to participate in the community and the wealth of the community. And you know, every once in a while I'd stop and think about it, and yeah, I'd come to these same conclusions. You know, where's my you know, and who made up this idea that we have to keep people scared and or desperate in order for the community to function properly? Why can't we make them feel secure and secure? Why can't we just make them feel secure, you know, and happy, I guess? What's wrong with that? I mean, why doesn't that work? I mean, why is it always fear? And it's always, if you're the one making all the money, it's always fear, right? Fear is the only thing that motivates everybody. Yeah, okay, I get that. I sure do get that, because you know that they're going to realize they're getting a raw deal, and you know that fear is the only thing that's going to keep them from saying fuck you, right? Alright, well anyway, so Patrick Walker says, forging movement weapons to defeat media propaganda and censorship. Well, you know, Patrick, your post is welcome, but what the hell does that mean? Forging movement weapons. Movement weapons. Okay, defeat media propaganda and censorship. Okay, well, first of all, you're not going to defeat media propaganda and censorship. That is such a huge thing. You and any of the movements aren't going to defeat it. But I really salute you for trying. Now, even though you're not going to defeat it, in a way you already have defeated it, because you are aware of the propaganda, and you know, the way you're going to defeat it is one person at a time. It's not going to happen like you're thinking, Patrick. It's not going to, we're not going to suddenly take over the schools, take over the television, radio, the media. We're not going to suddenly do that. Okay, so we have to be content to do it slowly. And you do that by, for one, staying out of jail, like poor Ken, you know, this guy that I've been talking about yesterday, who they drug off, who basically they drug off because what he does gets press. Maybe not mainstream press, but it gets pressed through us, right? We learn about some guy, he's a lawyer, and or was a lawyer, and certainly got past the bar at some point in his life and became a lawyer, and then they took it away from him. So people like that, you know, we really have to protect. So it says the Democratic Party and its media minions at the New York Times, and yeah, the New York Times. I mean, the New York Times is is a newspaper that we always kind of hoped would dig up the truth, dig up the dirt on all these sad, disgusting, evil people. But like you say, you're sadly wrong. And Facebook, it says, are apparently quite willing to censor criticism of the party. You know, Patrick, I can't agree with you there. I would like to see the proof. I don't see how it would be so difficult to come up with the proof. I mean, you see people every day saying, oh, Facebook won't let me post this. Okay, well, I don't see that happening. I see them stopping people from posting, but take a little camcorder like I've got right here and make video of how they stop you from posting, like I did in the previous segment about how they made it difficult. They didn't stop me, but they made it difficult for me to post anything about that lawyer in Pennsylvania, ex-lawyer. So, document it. Okay, so the Democratic Party and its media minions at the New York Times, and also sadly Facebook, are apparently quite willing to censor criticism of the party. So we kind of have to know what the censorship is and have examples of it. And I constantly hear about Facebook censoring people, and I showed an example of it earlier. How they make me fill in this thing that's supposed to be an anti-spamming tool that they have, and why. I was posting the post that I was posting for the first time when I posted it. The only thing that that they were really upset about was the fact that it had the name of a guy who's got a lawsuit against them going right now. And as far as I can tell, I'll tell you what scares me is I think they've got him in this mental ward and that they're drugging him up and basically coercing him. Who knows, it may be torture. I mean, they've already kidnapped him basically. He hadn't done anything. They refused to say that they arrested him, because that would be illegal. So they're using these weird laws for which, doesn't that screw up the whole thing for catching people who are nuts? So when you got a guy who's nuts, and you can't get them to do anything about him, and then you got a guy like this who hasn't ever done anything other than call somebody a cunt or get upset with somebody a little bit. He's never hit anybody as far as I know. And you've got all kinds, well, you know what I'm talking about. You got just a total double standard, right? If it's if the conservatives decide that they're not particularly opposed to the violence of somebody in particular, then those people, they don't get taken in until they kill somebody, right? And then there's a guy like this who's never even hit anybody. We got angry. Where is this threat? There is no threat. I can't find a place where he's threatened anybody. He might have gotten... I mean, people feel threatened if they're bad people, and good people point out, even angrily sometimes, how bad they are, and they feel threatened by that. That's not a threat. That's pointing out what a thief you are, or what a liar you are, a cheater you are. That's not a threat. That's simply getting angry over the fact that you're getting away with whatever you're getting away with. People get angry because they know that Trump is he's a slimy little bastard, right? Or a big fat slimy bastard. Whatever. The point is they get mad all the time. Now, I would think that don't get so angry that it makes you do something that will get you in trouble, because the bad people have control of the cops and stuff. I mean, they have the cops at their fingertips, so all you have to do is make a little mistake like this guy. Maybe, I don't think he even made a mistake. I think all he did was filed suits against a lot of important people. Okay, so basically, Patrick, you're right. I mean, but I don't know where it gets us anywhere. I mean, just pointing out that they're wrong to support, what did you say, devotion to endless war, beefed up domestic police state, commitment to whatever Democrats pro-climate rhetoric, to prolonging the production and uses of climate disastrous fossil fuels, and in general, yeah, I mean, you're talking about Hillary Clinton here. I get it, you know. And on here, you're really speaking to the choir, right? I mean, but you know what? People bitch because I allow hill trolls into the group. But I do it because they'll get to see this stuff that you guys post. And that's good, right? That we have some hill trolls in the group. I mean, they usually get upset and comment down here. Let's see if I can... I've kicked a bunch of them out of the group now, so... But there used to be some recent examples. Anyway, you know, I let them come in the group for just that reason. So when you criticize me for allowing them into the group, you might want to reconsider a little bit. Think about the fact that, you know, we want them to see this stuff. They're not going to see this in their groups. They're not going to understand what's really going on unless they are able to get into our groups. And see that we're not, and that's why I don't like some of the members of the groups posting things that, well, frankly, are just over the top. You know, I want the enemy to look at our posts and see that we're rock solid, and see posts that, I mean, I like your post, but it doesn't really have any teeth. You know, it points out things that everybody already knows about. So I like it, and I like to read it, but I like posts that kind of nail down evidence and present evidence and some detail as to the what's really happening, you know, and how it manifests itself in real life. So, and we'll get down to that. I mean, all your frustrations, eventually, we get down to what is really happening in the world.
State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I have not supported same-sex marriage. I've supported civil partnerships and contractual relationships.
I support marriage for lesbian and gay couples. I support it personally and as a matter of policy and law.
So you're saying your opinion on gay marriage changed, or you changed your mind?
You know, I have to say, I think you are being very persistent, but you are playing with my words and playing with what is such an
I'm just trying to clarify
issue.
So I can understand.
No, I don't think you are trying to clarify. I think you're trying to say that, you know, I used to be opposed and now I'm in favor and I did it for political reasons, and that's just flat wrong. So let me just state what I feel like you are implying and repudiate it. I have a strong record. I have a great commitment to this issue, and I am proud of what I've done and the progress we're making.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm sorry, I just want to clarify what I was saying. No, I was saying that you maybe really believe this all along, but, you know, believe in gay marriage all along, but felt for political reasons America wasn't ready yet and you couldn't say it. That's what I was thinking.
No, that is not true.
It really is great how long you've supported gay marriage.
Yes.
I could have supported it sooner.
Well, you did it pretty soon.
Could have been sooner.
Fair point.
Into the night we see, into the
July, New Hampshire, you told a crowd you, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center. Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
Never before seen video of Hillary Clinton inside the Walmart empire. She is probably one of the most investigative politicians in American history. And this morning you're going to see her in a way you've never seen her before, serving on the board of Walmart. ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross is here with details on this. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Robin. Although she makes no mention of it in her official biography, Hillary Clinton served for 6 years on the board of Walmart, a huge retailer criticized by many for its treatment of workers and its strident opposition to unions.
Okay, so racism, right? Again, every day we're dealing with racism, which I guess we have to, because I guess it's still that much of a problem, and I know it is. I know people who sit around and okay, whether or not to use the N-word. Let's just stop worrying about words so much. I know people sit around and talk and say call people niggers, and say that they're lazy, and say that they're just as a race they're lazy, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, we all know that. We all know they're out there, and we all know that they're the ones who are quietly backing the racism that makes it like all the way into the White House and everywhere else. But let's talk brass tacks about the racism, okay? Why? For instance, why do some white people tell me, well, we tried it. We tried hiring black people, and we tried letting them be our neighbors, and because these are the things that you hear from time to time out of white people, right? The racist white people. As if some government program or government laws or rules that, for instance, housing rules that force people to have certain amount of minorities and things like that, as if just because they were enforced successfully, which I doubt for the most part, somewhere at some time, and then somewhere at some time. I mean, this is what they're talking about, right? They're saying it's somewhere at some time we gave blacks a chance, and then they screwed it up, right? And of course, we wouldn't hear about it the millions of times that black people live in white communities and get along with everybody, and of course, we'd never admit that white people don't get along. I mean, I've had plenty of white neighbors who have been impossible to get along with. There was a guy just down the street. I mean, I don't have anything to do with these people who live around me except for a couple of friends, right? And already since I've been here, I've had some guy threaten me because he didn't like something I said. Well, in fact, and this guy's a state trooper, you know, so he's an ass, obviously. And there was a dog loose in the neighborhood, and nobody knew, and it didn't belong here. Nobody knew who it was. It was obviously somebody's dog, but it wasn't from anywhere around here. And in fact, now that I think about it, I might know whose dog that was. Okay, so anyway, the dog's loose, and I had tried to get it to come to me a couple times, but I couldn't get it to come to me. And I'd gone to get some ham, because I figured, well, you know, one way to get a dog to come to you is offer it something yummy to eat. And so I was getting ready to try and get it to come to me, and I was out there earlier, and I had told him, and he had his son with him, and he had a black kid from the neighborhood, right? We all live on a cul-de-sac, a guy named Alexander, and I told him to stop chasing the dog. I told him, look, try and get it to come to you, but don't chase it. And he said, okay, all right, we won't chase it. And then the next thing I know, I'm walking down the street looking between the houses, and there's him and his son, and they're just chasing that dog all around in the fields out behind the houses where there's no houses. So I went back inside. I'm like, I'm not going to have anything to do with this. And then I come back out a little later, and I've got that ham, right? And I'm looking for the dog, so they're chasing the dog, and the black kid had gone down the street and comes back saying the dog bit him. That he'd gotten a hold of it somehow. I mean, obviously he's a kid, he's pretty fast, pretty fit, and he said he'd gotten a hold of the dog and the dog bit him and he had to let it go. Well, yeah. You know, I told him, don't try and catch the dog, try and get it to come to you. I even told him I'm going to get a leash, because, you know, at least if you had a leash you might be able to get it to stay with you. I mean, you can't grab a hold of a dog while it's trying to bite you, right? I mean, that's just fucking stupid, right? And I was walking down the street, and I'd given this guy's kid the ham and told him what to do, you know, how to go down there and try and attract the dog. And I was walking with his father, the guy who's the state trooper, and I said something about, you know, I told you not to chase the dog, and he came at me like he was going to try and hit me, saying, don't talk to me like I'm a child. And I hear this all the time out of adults. What are you talking about? You know, you just say something, and they need something to come back at you with. So they come back at you with some kind of bullshit argument that makes you wrong, even though what you said was that they were wrong and you were right that they were wrong. You know, I mean, he shouldn't have told those kids to try and catch that dog, try and grab a hold of that dog. It got one of the kids bit. Not his kid, but the other kid. Fucking idiots. Okay, so what does this have to do with racism? Well, so I talk to people all the time. I talk to my neighbors. I don't, like I say, have much to do with them, but you talk, right? You're not going to be rude. And you know that a lot of times I'll be talking to people and they'll be racist. So I know that there's plenty of racists out there. For all of you who suspect that there's racists out there, yeah, trust me. As a person who knows other people who are racist, there are racists out there. And their opinions are not driving, but supporting all this really dangerous activity that's going on. Now, you have to know that poor people in general, and most poor people are minorities. I mean, minorities have a very high rate of poverty. And being poor, they're not going to be good employees. They're not going to be good neighbors. They're under constant pressure.
It's amazing. You go to Europe, they don't graduate medical school $300,000-$400,000 a day. That is totally insane. If you went to medical school, you want to go out and make as much money as you can in order to pay off that debt. Are you going to go into primary care in a lower income community where you are desperately needed? Likely not, because the salary there is too low. You're going to go to some high-paying part of the medical profession, even if we don't need more doctors in that area.
God, these videos, it's like they attach themselves to you like an alien from Aliens, you know. How do you get them to go away? You have to hit the escape key. God. And how do you know that? I don't know, just from constantly getting out of them. So, education, come on, people. This is a no-brainer. So let's say that we took a little thing like this little car cam that I use, and we took one into every classroom, and we recorded the class. Obviously the schools don't want you to know this, because if you took a little car cam, we could have been doing this since the 60s, right? When they first, maybe even 50s, when they first came up with videotape. We could have been recording classes, and instead of going to class, people could be sitting at home in front of their TV watching, you know, Biology 101 from Harvard University, and the class would only have to be taught one time instead of thousands of times, over and over and over, and put on videotape and then made available to the people who are taking the class, and then you would have these big auditoriums where people would come in and take the tests and things like that, you know, and it'd be kind of like voting. You'd have to show your ID and everything. You'd have to be able to prove who you are. And people could be learning from home. I mean, it already exists on the internet to a certain extent. I can take classes in a lot of things on YouTube without, I mean, they're not actually classes, they're just video, and they're even better than classes because it would be better than having a little car cam and recording. You know, it's often much higher quality video, and it's done in a way that's a little more conducive to learning, or even to being paid attention to. You know, you're much more likely to pay attention to it because of the, I don't know, the nice video and everything is a little bit stimulating. The sound is obviously better, but you know, to get a degree, who cares? I would watch video just made off a car cam and take e-books. You know, e-books are all over the place. They have been for a long time, and you know, the only people who this upsets is the people who make all the money off of education in this country. But what's more important? That we do things in the most economic way, and that we do things so that people have access to what they need and want. I mean, it's all about serving the 25%, the 3%, the 1%, the 0.1%, you know, the 1/100th of a percent, instead of about serving the people. And last time I checked, oh no, well, they don't actually say this. They don't actually come out and say this because they know you know it, right? And that is that an economy is all about providing the most important aspect of an economy. I mean, without it, there's civil wars and social breakdown and anger and violence, and that's why there is all that. The number one reason for having an economy is to provide basic, essential goods and services. That's the number one reason. No, they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to think that. They want you to think that the number one reason is so that you can put food on your plate and a roof over your head. They don't want you to think beyond that. They don't want you to think about the whole philosophy of economics and, you know, history of it and all that kind of stuff. No, no. As a matter of fact, what if somebody took their little camcorder, their little car cam, into a class about, you know, philosophy and economics? Not that I've ever seen the two wedded in a traditional situation, a traditional school. Economics, like business schools, like the one I went to, the Cameron School of Business, one of the top 10 in the country, by the way, at the time, according to U.S. News and I forget, I think Newsweek. Did they ever talk about the philosophy and about poverty? No. Never once. Not in all my time going to school. And I took economics from, you know, 82 in college all the way up. I think I take that back. I think I took some back at Foothill College too. I'd have to check. But anyway, I was in school for like 7 or 8 years. And I mean in school doing classes. They didn't transfer all my credits. That's why I got stuck in school for so long. When I went to get my degree at University of St. Thomas, where the Cameron Business School is, they wouldn't transfer any of my credits. I mean, that's what they do to people. They just screw you over. So there's nothing about philosophy or poverty or all that. There's nothing about in economics. When you go to school, you just study economics. You take marketing, you take management, you take accounting, you take all those classes, business law, but they never really get into, never once. And then philosophy, you know, I've taken a lot of philosophy classes in college too, and in going to a Catholic university, they have prerequisites. You have to take them. They really don't get into it. They really don't. They dance around the subject. And, you know, Jesus was all about trying to do something about poverty and injustice. Boy, but you go to a Catholic, you know, like 12 years of Catholic school and university. Really don't remember them talking about it a whole lot. So anyway, the fact that you could very, very inexpensively and probably a better system of education set up a way that every poor kid in America could become very well educated, and that they don't. I mean, they've been dancing around any kind of idea like the one I just mentioned, where we put it all on the internet and put ebooks on the internet and then have people go in for tests. Or maybe you could even do tests over the internet if you could find a way to keep people from cheating, right? So, yeah, if they won't do that, doesn't that tell you everything about what their real priorities are? They don't want smart people. It's just like George Carlin said, you know. He said they don't want you to be smart. They don't. Here, let me just go to it. And so Carlin, try Carlin Rich for, sounds like that'll get me. Yeah. So let's just.
There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else.
I have to ask you, you know, when I watch this stuff, and when I go to old links that I have saved in my favorites, right, maybe 2 or 3 years old, and find that YouTube has shut them down because of copyright issues, there are clips like this. And first of all, what does it hurt if somebody wants to use a little clip, say under 10 minutes or something, out of something that some company is now claimed ownership of? I mean, this is George Carlin. He owns it. I'm sure he wouldn't care if I wanted to show. I know he's dead, but I'm sure he wouldn't give a. He would be more than happy that this clip was a part of this segment. More than happy. And it's just all these. God, don't you people get tired of just running around like rats in a maze? You know, everybody. Don't we all get tired of everything? You can't fucking do anything. You can't do anything and somebody's screaming, you're hurting me. You know, I put my music up on the internet freely. Someday, if I ever get motivated enough, I might ask people to donate, you know, to me, because I'm producing music that I hope people like, you know. So I'm not getting paid for it. So it's the total opposite philosophy of, oh, we train you on what to like. This is how the corporations do it. We limit your music and your movies and your TV, and then we demand, you know, when it comes to, it may just cost you $25 to go see a band or something like that, but overall these companies, they're making off of everybody millions and millions and millions of dollars, right? So they're telling you what to like, and then they're only making it available if you pay for it, and they're doing everything to make sure that you can't. And there's no litmus tests for if you're poor or not. So if you're some, you know, poor kid, you can't get, because you can't afford it. And why shouldn't there be some kind of compensating mechanism for poor people? You know, no matter what I get into when it comes to buying stuff and paying for stuff in life, it never takes into you know, I worked until I was 53, 54 years old as part of the system. I went to school. That's work too, believe me. Nobody likes going to school. I mean, yeah, there's like everything, there's kind of a dual aspect to it. But anyway, so everybody works, and you know, if you get the short stick, right, shouldn't there be a mechanism? You know, I mean, should you be punished and not be allowed entertainment because you got the short end of the stick when it came from getting money out of being part of your community? I just know inside in my heart that that's wrong, you know.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your
What pension? You know, I was never even offered a pension.
Retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all.
See, this is why Bernie shot to the top. because and this is probably the greatest 3 minutes on a video to ever exist, and nobody should own it. Nobody should tell me I can't put it in, because when you have a man stand up and tell the truth, a truth that millions and millions and millions and billions of people are just dying to hear, you can't own that. So whoever thinks they own this little clip of this man standing, I mean, it's like if somebody had a video of the Gettysburg Address. I mean, you guys, whoever's out there, and they're claiming ownership of these things belong to the people. They belong to us. They don't belong to you. And even, I'm not a religious man, but I know that in the religious text in the Bible somewhere it says that, the evil people will covet the earth. And that's what this is all about. So, while I'm not religious, and I think the Bible has a lot of bullshit in it, or that people use the Bible and twist it around, whatever. The point is that there is wisdom in the words in the Bible. You just have to know how to dig it out, and that part, wherever it is, about how the evil will covet the earth, it's so true. I mean, you guys just want to own everything. You want to tell everybody to keep their hands off, and nobody can even have copies. I mean, it's not enough that you have your copy. You want to make sure nobody else has their copies until they pay you. Now, I can understand people wanting to get paid for their hard work. So George Carlin, he was great. I'm sure he got paid plenty of money for what he did, and he probably felt that way, and he probably didn't die poor. But there's plenty of people who contribute a lot. How about the boxers who die poor, and long before they die they're suffering from all these brain injuries and all this stuff. I mean, we have to get injustice out of the system, and that will take care of injustice at an individual level. We have to do it. We all know injustice is just like somebody said, I know it when I see it. I know it when it happens to me. And we all know when we see it, and we all know when it happens to us, right? I mean, the only reason that it's so complicated is the rich aren't allowing anybody to get it. They're not allowing anybody to have justice when it comes to the system that protects them.
And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on. The fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
All right. Well, so, that's why, I give a lot of credit to that video, because honestly, it's on Facebook. I could not get a lot of traction, but man, I started pushing that video. I started posting that video on people's comments, in the comments section of people who would be talking about justice and economic justice and fairness and stuff, and I mean, sooner or later people started really responding. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying I created the liberal movement, but boy, I sure did promote it. And I mean the progressive movement, really. because there's a lot about being liberal that even most progressives don't agree about. So, you know, all this stuff makes sense, and it's obvious that they're keeping it from us for obvious reasons, right?
Walmart's opposition to unions was led for decades by labor lawyer John Tate, who after his retirement proudly recalled at this company meeting in 2004 what he said was his favorite phrase.
Labor unions are nothing but blood-sucking parasites living off of the productive labor of people who work for a living.
Hillary Clinton was not present at this Walmart meeting, but Tate was relied on for years to keep unions out at Walmart, including during the 6 years from 1986 to 92, when Clinton was on the Walmart board and Tate was either an executive or a member of the board himself.
There were over 60,000 in total sent and received. About half were work-related and went to the State Department, and about half were personal that were not in any way related to my work.
When you speak to the public, you say, I turned over everything. That's, for the most part, a direct quote. When you talk to the public, you say, I turned over everything.
90 to 95% of my work-related emails were in the state system. If they wanted to see them, they would certainly have been able to do so.
You know what? That is maybe the 10th time you have cited that figure today.
It is.
And I have not heard anyone other than you ever cite that figure. Who told you that 90 to 95% of your emails were in the State Department system? Who told you that?
We learned that from the State Department in their analysis of the emails that were already on the system.
The Inspector General report found that less than 1% of State Department emails, record emails, were captured. So they give a number of less than 1%, and you give a number of 90%.
Interest in Libya in 2012.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
Only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails, and I ordered Christmas presents from a reservation. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails. I didn't want to be one of them.
I mean, and how many angels dance on the head of a pin? I have really nothing to. I mean, how do you answer that?
Represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007 before the big crash that we had. And I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
Of course, we have to deal with the problem that the banks are still too big to fail. We can never let the American taxpayer and middle-class families ever have to bail out the kind of speculative behavior that we saw. But we also have to worry about some of the other players. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank. There's this whole area called shadow banking. That's where the experts tell me the next potential problem could come from. So I'm with both Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley in putting a lot of attention. I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.